welcome back to another episode of JT Talks Jobs. This is the show that teaches you everything that school didn't about job search and career growth. And continuing with our incredible monthly series, we've got Stacey Lewis from HRInterrupted back with us again, right? Oh, wait, I did say it right. Well, I wanted to say disrupted. It's crazy.
We do that too. We do
I'm
that
so
too.
glad you're back. We are going to be talking about how to influence and inspire a diverse workplace. And I feel really proud because when we had you on the first time, you said, look, we're just going to learn. We're going to take it in. We're going to learn, because what we're going to talk about today is what everybody wanted to jump to.
Right.
They just want to know, well, how do I fix it? Or how do I get off the radar screen of looking like the bad company or the bad guy, right? And you were like, no, slow the roll. We're gonna take it all in. We're gonna learn. We've had incredible discussions. If you are joining us for the first time, please know you can go back into our YouTube channel archives. You can go back to our podcast archives, which I know the team will share with you. Listen to each of these sessions. They have built upon one another to today. So very excited to be talking about this topic. Want to give a special shout out to my team who is manning the support chat. We are going to go through this today, and then we're going to leave plenty of time to ask your questions, folks. So keep that in mind and be kind to our amazing crew there. And of course, we want to remind you that we've always got lots of great free resources for you on all of our various channels. So if you're inspired by today, here's what we'd love to do. If you really love what you hear today, will you send it to somebody that needs to hear this? Will you share it with just one person and help us spread the word and build the knowledge and the understanding that we're trying to accomplish here? That is your goal. So if you like today, you know what to do, and I'll remind you again at the end. But now we're going to get into it, because Stacey, you and I met yesterday, and
yes.
I said to you my first question to you was, when it comes to inspiring a diverse workforce, where do you start? Like, what's your ultimate goal? And your answer to me was, you said, JT, you've heard this quote before. It's begin with the end in mind. And so right. I get that, but what does that look like? So you as an HR leader and as somebody who consults on this subject, what is a good example of the end in mind? What are you looking for as a goal?
Great. Again, JT, thank you so much. I love these monthly conversations, and I've been looking forward to this one as all the others. But let's jump right in. Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. Now we've talked about the what and the why, and now we're talking about the the how. The question is, how do you lead and inspire a diversity and inclusive workforce team? Begin with the end in mind. What is your ultimate goal? For me, as an HR influencer, 35 plus years in the game, mine is belonging. That's what I'm ultimately looking for in leading and inspiring a diverse and inclusive team. I'm looking for us to get to the day of belonging. Not that we're diverse, because remember I shared you can be diverse and not have inclusion. You can have inclusion and not be diverse. You can have equity. It is belonging for me. And then, JT, not only is it belonging for me, I have to define what belonging is, right? Because one person could say, oh, there's this universal term of belonging. There may be, but for you as the leader, what is belonging? And for me, and I share with you this amazing thought process that a client that I'm working with gave me. I was talking to him about belonging, and he said, Stacey, for us, belonging will be, you said it, both B's matter. We think about the workforce belonging as much as we think about the bottom line. They are equal. And I said, that's it. That's it for me. It has to, the belonging of the people who work for me has to be as important as the revenue that we bring in.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ball game.
I'm going to stop you there, because I feel like you and I coined this, that both B's matter, belonging both and bottom line. We need to do an article on that.
Both B's matter. Yes.
Both B's matter. And I think there is a way to test your leadership team to really find out, because they're all paying lip service. I said to you, I'm very frustrated with the amount of executives that came to me and said, what's the checklist? How do I get off the radar screen? If you're here today and that's your mindset, you probably don't want to stay for the rest of this conversation.
Right. Because we're not talking to you. That is
not making the two B's matter, making them equal. When you are saying and making decisions that may actually not give you as much bottom line, but it's right for the belonging. That's when we're talking about striking that right balance, and understanding that. I think that's a sensitive subject. I think there's a reason, bottom line, has played a factor in a lot of reasons that some really good diversity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives have never panned out because the bottom line took over where the belonging should have been equal footing. Do you agree?
Well, I agree. Here's what we're, you have to make the business case. You didn't make the business case, right? That's where we always fall back on. You have to make the business case. Let's be clear. JT and I are not saying that business is not important, because that's what drives us. That's why we move. Right. But if you're really going to be a change agent in this game, the people who make the dollars have to matter. Yeah. They have to matter. And so for me, when I say belonging, it's like I shared with you, everybody on the team knows, feels, and can shout from the rooftop that they have a voice in the organization. And you hear what I say, shout from the rooftop. So they're not pretending in front of everybody that they do, but they have an active voice. What matters to them matters to the organization. And it could be very, very, everybody genuinely feels and knows that they belong, and the actions that I give as a leader and supporting the organization justifies that.
And that's what we're going to get into next, because
correct,
this is where leaders that are listening today are going to get uncomfortable, because we've got a list of things that you really need to consider and keep in mind. And obviously one that's been thematic, that we'll just get out of the way, that's been thematic through our learning process, is the check your biases. Right? You've got to check your biases in the moment here. Like you just said, the business case, that is such a way to hide a bias and dismiss a bias. It's unbelievable. Give us some examples of other biases that you've seen that people have got to really squash in order to create this space and lead in this way.
So JT, I'm glad we're talking about this. As you and I talked about, you can go to the internet and there's all these wonderful 6 ways to lead a diverse team. Yeah. LinkedIn did the 4 C's of, doing a culture, connection, commitment, all that. And we're not undermining that. That's good. But you guys come every month because you want to hear the nitty gritty. You want to hear what's going on behind the closed doors. So when we're talking about check your biases, we've already talked about microaggressions. We've already talked about we touched on a little bit about the unconscious bias. We've already talked about those factors that allow people or make people feel that they are not included. Now what we're talking about is action. So hiding behind business case is one of them. Mm-hmm. Another bias is, JT is the head of Work It Daily Instant, and she's not committed, so neither am I. Right? So that you hide behind it. When I'm saying check those, watch what you're hiding behind to not make this move forward.
I totally agree. How about, I want you to get into the idea of proving yourself. That's another one that I think is huge. When they say prove yourself.
So hiding behind the business case, hiding behind the leader, and making people overly prove themselves, right? Okay, so I really want to do this belonging thing, Stacey. I really want to do this, but I have, this worker and, they're almost there. Well, have you defined what almost there is? They've been there 4, 5, 6 years and they're going on and on and on and on. And you're continuing to make them prove themselves. I'm encouraging us to stop focusing on the title and look at the talent. Yeah. A lot hides behind on that bias, right? Oh, she's only a secretary, so she can't contribute to this conversation. So only C-suite people can do that, right? See, this is, if you're talking about the high JT, we're really getting to this. A belonging culture is just as the secretary, and you and I both know that the administrative support team, they kind of got a large hand in running what happens because they know what's going on. But we're focusing on the title. So because she is not a executive and manager or whatever title that you, proverbial you as leader, feels important, then they don't have a voice, right? Check your bias.
I totally agree. And I want to give you an example. I want you to talk me through this. So you got a really talented person. They're doing great, but maybe their presentation skills are not what the C-suite or the boardroom or the executive team is used to having present to them. Mm-hmm. So I've seen cases where they say, well, the person's not quite there yet. And because the code is they're not presenting in the way this group of people expects them to present. Do you see what I'm saying? So how that's a problem. I've seen middle managers go, I've got this great person, but I know if I put her in that room, they're not going to trust her because of the way she presents. What do you think about that? And how do you have a leadership team work through that?
So great question, JT. People shy away from this term. You got to pay your dues. Okay. We all know. The term I like to use is there is a manner in which you need to operate. Okay. So with that being said, you and I are not telling, everyone out there to put maybe someone who's not as seasoned yet in that position, because we do not want to set them up to not be successful and then have them be ridiculed or not be able to move forward. But what you do in a safe space, you allow them to go forward in a safe space, right? You allow them to go forward. And then when you're really creating an environment of belonging, Stacey Lewis, as the chief HR officer or the chief HR, I come to you, JT, and I say, hey, JT, listen, today I'm going to ask Lindsay to lead our presentation. Okay. I'm creating something here. Right? So, because you said, you're a leader, that we're creating an environment of belonging, right? So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask for you to support this, right? Because ultimately we want her to be able to move forward. See, people are not going to bat for each other. Right. We're not going to bat for each other anymore. We're, as leaders, go to bat for your people.
Totally agree. How is this person supposed to get the experience and learn what you want if you're not going to give them the experience? And I love your idea around a safe space, and I hope all my leaders are listening here. Go to them and say, I am creating an opportunity for this person to experience something that's going to elevate their game. And they're probably not going to be perfect this time around, but think about what you're doing for this person in that moment. Right. I love that approach, right?
And it has to be something right, safe, right? Now, if you're going to the chairman of the board and you're having your annual meeting, that may not be the time, right? We understand that because we are all very savvy business leaders. But if you're doing a presentation on the update of the division, then that is a safe space. Yeah. Work with them there, have them go forward. I can't shake this. As leaders, we got to go to bat for our team, and it can't just be what we think, right? And I learned this one the hard way, right, JT? I learned this the hard way of, it has to be perfect. Everything that comes out of HR has to be perfect. Yeah, it does. We need to be credible. But if I'm an inspirational leader and I'm telling the 20 people who follow me that I got you, prime example, then I'm going to go for them. I'm working on a project right now. We're doing a succession planning initiative. I have one of my up and coming rock stars. She's the project lead. She meets monthly with our executive director and our deputy executive director. She came to me and she told me, thank you. Not in a million years would she have that access. You know why I'm doing that? Why does she have to be a C-suite to have access? Right. So now when there's a question, you know who they're going? They're calling her and they're including me. That's what I was trying to create, right? That's what I wanted to create. And she's like, Stacey, thank you. Thank you. It works.
And what you're talking about here is coaching, which, I guess that's why I literally built the company Work It Daily and all my team. Why we're so passionate about this is that if we're not going to coach people and we're not going to invest a little, and I know it takes time and I know it's a little bit of work, but you just said it yourself. Now they're going directly to her and just seeing you. You've made your job easier by maybe making your job a little harder on the front end and maybe even dealing with a little confrontation, which leads to my next thing. Another dismissal I hear all the time is people don't want to deal with confrontation. They don't want to deal with the coaching. They don't want to deal with things that are uncomfortable or hard. Can we talk to that a little bit? Because I think that is one of the biggest reasons that this is being held up is people just don't like dealing with the hard stuff.
Right. Another bias. I just want this to be comfortable for me. I don't want to deal with anything. If you are truly creating an environment of belonging, JT, then everybody has to matter. And you are going to have people on your team, right, of that diversity of perspective. See, sometimes when we look at this, JT, we look at race, we look at gender, we look at those things but that diversity of perspective is the one that's also flying under the radar that we need to bring up. I recently was involved in a conversation where there was a survey done, and 90% of the workforce came back and told the leaders, the number one thing, you don't have diversity in leadership. You all look like yes people. Blew the organization away, blew them away. That, not race was number two, but the number one complaint we have as your workforce is there is no diversity of thought. Everybody looks like a yes person. In leadership, you only speak if so-and-so speaks. You don't do any more. You don't do any less.
Yeah.
I loved that because now, so that's where that uncomfortable piece is. That's where you have the person on the team that asks the questions that everybody wants to ask, but nobody does.
Doesn't that hit? So we've talked so much about fit and culture and fit. And this is where companies and leadership teams hire to make their lives easier by hiring everybody that's the same.
Correct.
Right? Just make their lives easier. So I love that got called out in that survey, because diversity of thought is a pain point. It's literally what creates such a roadblock to what we're talking about today.
And I mean, was really pronounced, JT, and the diversity of perspective, right? In that, how do you look different? Who on that leadership team would challenge the status quo?
Right.
Beautiful. See, we're still talking about belonging. I love it. We're still talking belonging. So who on your team is that person for you? I'm so honored. The team that I work on, I'm telling you, I am so blessed, the team that I have. And I have a person on my team who calls it out, says what everybody's thinking, right? Ask the questions that should be asked, and is somewhat unconventional in the delivery. Mm-hmm. Now, as a leader, I could be a jerk, which sometimes we are. Do you know who you're talking to? I'm the chief HR officer. I'm the founder of HRInterrupted.
I don't have time for this drama. Yeah,
I don't have time for this. But I need that. You know why I need that? Because I have made a commitment to the team that I'm going to inspire you to the level that I can. And I want you to hold me accountable. So because I need to know what's going on, JT. Because let me tell you what's great about this relationship. Anything that I need to know, this person comes. I know you don't want to hear it. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. And 98% of the time is something that I need to know and I need to act on. Come on.
Yep. I need to hear it. I might not love the way it's being delivered, but I need to hear it. Right. And I think that's what I'm talking about. This part of our job, folks, is to not avoid confrontation, not to avoid the heart. We have to just deal with it. Right. And, you were talking about this person, which I love that story. But yesterday, it really got us into this discussion around, in order to help create belonging, we actually need to get to know people on a more personal level. So that's the other thing. I'm not asking you to be best friends with your staff, and do everything with them, but people say we're a family. I don't know that it necessarily has to be that, but there is this level that you have to get at. Talk to us about that. Why do we need to get inside their head and understand a little bit of their backstory and where they're coming from? Why is that so important?
JT, I love that. Again, in HR, we have to be mindful. And I'm not talking about being best friends, going to the cookouts, because as a leader, you have to make a decision sometimes that does not look like a friend. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's be real with that. You have to make a decision that does not look like a friend, but that does not mean that you cannot care. You cannot care and ask questions. I love this example. Was working with someone, and she was sharing a story. And in this story, it was unconventional, the story. And so the position that she thought the person that she was sharing the story with, they were just going to be like, okay, well, that's your issue. That's not my issue. Right. The leader turned around and said, you know what? I don't have knowledge of that. Share more. You see, right in that moment, that leader got that person's attention, because let me tell you, the person dropped it because they were like, I'm just going to say this because they're not even interested anyway. Booyah. The person came back and said, I'm not familiar with that. Share more. Right. Have some of those share more moments, because when you know what's going on, then that helps with the behavior. Yeah. Sharing with you the person that I'm talking about, right? Growing up, there was a different situation, right? Being included is very important to this person. Being included and being heard is very important to this person. So why, as a leader, And I know that, JT. Why would I not, when I can, why would I not support that?
Completely
That's
agree.
a whole different level.
It is so true. It's that perspective, right? And that bond,
Right.
that trust you're going to get with them, which again, trust and respect creates belonging. But
Trust
for
and
each
respect.
person, that's slightly unique, which is why I love that you said you got to get in there a bit more. You got to explore where they're coming from. So
have that intellectual curiosity.
That's it, right? Being curious about your people. I love that. And then I threw you a curveball yesterday because I said, okay, what do we say to all these people out there who aren't necessarily hiring right now? Mm-hmm. And they look at their roster, like we were talking about the roster, and you're like, well, no diversity there. and there's no hiring in the near future. But let's say they're going to eventually be able to hire, and we know they're going to focus on hiring for diverse workforce. There's still stuff they can be doing right now to prepare the environment to create better belonging, right?
One, go back and see our last 4 months. We've given some of it.
Go back and take your office, sit down and watch the last 4 months. That's a great first step.
First step. We've given some amazing education. And again, make a commitment of what you're going to do as a team.
Right.
This can't be something that's an afterthought, a kind of thought, a maybe thought we're going to do it. Okay, Mr. Floyd was murdered on TV, so we're going to embrace this for about 6 months till the noise dies down. That's not what this is. That's not what it is. The team led by the leader has to make a conscious decision that no matter what, I'm in, and then define what that looks like and define what it looks like for the team. Yeah. Because JT, when you do that, even though you're not hiring right now, what you do is you start creating that synergy for when Stacey Lewis shows up.
That's it.
Right? You create that synergy, and Stacey Lewis feels that synergy from the time that you start courting me and I'm courting you. But we want to immediately move in action. Oh, okay, now we have to recruit now. And, there's this bus that we need to do a targeted recruitment. Come on, it's more than a targeted recruitment. It is a way of life.
It's a way, absolutely.
It's a way of life.
I love that. And I like you said, there's so much they can learn between now and when we make that, when you finally add some diversity to your roster.
There's books. We've talked there's resources, there's books out there, there's conversations. You know what, leaders, I would like to encourage the amazing leaders on here. Have you talked to your workforce?
Right.
Have you talked to your workforce and said, ask them this simple question: to you, what would an inclusive and belonging, or whatever definition you want to come up, work team look like to you? JT, sometimes we overlook the knowledge that's in front of us. Right. We overlook the impact of the knowledge that's in front of us. Well, they can't contribute to that. No, they can. What would that look like to you?
I love it. So that led me into when you finally get to recruit. And I promise everyone listening today, Stacey and I have committed to coming up with sort of a job description example. But we want to talk about the job description when you finally get to hiring for diversity, because I was saying to you, I think that there are job descriptions out there that literally probably make some people go, oh yeah, I wouldn't feel like I belong there. I'm not going to apply. And one of the things we want to ask everybody to do right now is sort of an informal poll. If you have ever not applied to a job because you felt like you wouldn't belong there, put 1 in the chat. If you have never felt that way, felt like you could apply to any job, put 2. So 1 is, yes, I've literally passed on applying to a job because I felt like I wouldn't belong based on what I read. And if you want to tell us maybe what turned you off or what made you feel like you wouldn't belong, we'd love to see that in the comments. And 2 would be, nope, that's never been a problem for me, because I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the 1s are going to win. I do believe that there are people out there reading a job description and going, oh gosh, no, I wouldn't last. So thoughts on that, because you had some really fun thoughts on how a job description could evolve to make people feel like they should apply.
Well, first of all, what are they still going in? Because the first thing I talked to you about is those websites. Websites are a turn off. Some of these websites are a turn off, especially when you go to meet the staff, about us, see the team, right? And you open up and the team does not show whatever you want to call it. The team is not diverse.
So the diversity. No, you're totally right. It happened to me recently. A company reached out to me and they wanted to do work together. And I went over to look at their site, and there was, zero diversity, 40 employees, zero diversity, all pictures of everybody. But literally in 30 seconds, I could see there was zero diversity there, which for me, and I'm talking no diversity in women, right? Like
I was going to say, define that, right? No diversity in women, no diversity in color.
I won't be able to collaborate well. Now, whether that's right or wrong, right? Because that was they maybe would have been a great company to collaborate with. But the reality is, what I've been through as a woman, everything I'm learning now, the fact that I saw that was a total turnoff to me. So I get it. I think some companies should take that stuff down right now.
So JT, when you say whether that's right or wrong, the only person who can define that is you.
Right.
I don't think it's not for me to say your position on that. And I think that right or wrong statement, a lot of people say that it defines what your value are. Your value is you want to work with an organization that appears diverse. Nobody can say that that's right or wrong, right? That's another bias. Well, I need to give them a chance. Be honest about your values. Be honest about what they're. That's why I love coming on this show, because I could just be honest. And everybody doesn't share this perspective.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
I think somebody would have seen the name of the company and been like, were you crazy, JT? But to me, it was bothersome. I've had enough experience with that. So, but you're right. Personal to me. Could have been a different experience.
And to your values. Exactly.
Yeah.
How's the chat box coming with the ones and the twos?
That'll be a good question. I'll have the team tell us in a minute. Team, let me know in the chat. Are we seeing more ones than twos? I'm dying to know right now. All right, I'm looking at, right after a quick glance, I'm seeing lots of ones.
Lots of ones.
So see, we're proving the point here. If there's any people, HR leaders listening, your job descriptions matter more than you think. They absolutely they matter. Like, you've got to rethink how you're writing these. You were talking about this because I know you're on an initiative to do this yourself, to just make them more interesting, and have tried in the past. I'm not putting you on the spot, but maybe like an off the cuff example of what would make it more attractive for people.
So you're right. I am, as the disruptor that I am, and the inspiration person I am, I'm pushing hard for us. If because this movement means something to me. Like inclusion, diversity, equity, belonging means something to me. And we cannot start, JT. This was probably our third meeting when we got together. You can't start when the people arrive. I said this. I'd rather you hire one person of color and have them have an amazing experience from start to finish. They have succession planning. They know where they're going to go. Then hire 5 Black people and they just sit in the corner and you don't even know their name. So with that being said, the experience starts from when you're recruiting, right? So one of the things that I'm looking at is, I want in our job posting, I want the people to know that the organization that I work for, we are committed to this space. We're committed to this space and what our commitment will be. So, we have these first of all, job postings need to be overhauled in general. But
in general, yeah.
College degree, 10 years of experience, examples of duty, the ideal candidate. Oh, let's talk about the ideal candidate. That would be a great place. If you're not ready, if you're really not ready to go out there where I'm going to take you, in the ideal candidate, talk about what your ideal candidate. Our ideal candidate is a person that from day one, they know that they belong. And the reason why we know that they will belong, because they will demonstrate these factors and we will support it. You see what they're right there, right? We don't pretend to have all the answers, but what we do know is, in collaboration or a partnership with you, we will ensure together that you belong. We're going to hold you accountable. When we miss it, you let us know. And then and then how we're going to hold you accountable is that we want you to take it forward, pay it forward. You could put that under your ideal candidate. Obviously, when you talk about your other thing, I have not seen that. Now for me as a job seeker, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let me look at this. There's a true commitment here, because we all did statements after George Floyd, right? All the organizations have these wonderful statements. But they're here. How does a job seeker know what your statement is? Okay, you have it on your website, but how does that translate into the work? Right? Yeah.
What have you done?
What are you?
I can be included in a job description. Let's give you an example of how we've created better belonging. Does this appeal to you? Then this might be the right place for you, right? We're not giving them enough context. I totally agree with you.
And I was sharing with you about the time that I was, at an organization I worked for young in my career, and I knew that we got to let people know they matter from the beginning. So the intro to my job, it was the beginning of the year of a new year back in the 90s. And the first intro of my job posting said, "This is the beginning of the year. And I know you're probably sitting down wondering, talking about your New Year's resolutions. And they're probably this: number 1, read a book. Number 2, lose weight. Number 3, find a new job. Good luck on 1 and 2, but we can definitely help you on number 3. Welcome to so-and-so," right? I submitted that to my leadership, and my leadership said, "We don't do that."
And yet that's the exact thing that would get so many more reads.
Correct.
Exactly. We live in a storytelling world right now, right? Social media, for better or for worse, is never going away, folks, and provides an incredible value, right? So we learn at hyper rates now. We connect at hyper rates now. If job descriptions don't become stories or convey feeling, which is what I think you're saying, emotion, connection, then they're worthless, right? We get garbage. We put garbage on a page and say, "Here's 50 things I need from you." And we get garbage from the candidates. We've got to change it up.
Because we need to create, JT, the candidate experience, right? Ladies and gentlemen out there, we're still talking about leading a diverse and inclusive and belonging workforce culture. We need to create a candidate experience. From the time that I look at Work It Daily website, I should be like, you know what? This is a place that I want to go. One of the things that we've been very successful at the organization I work with at Port is what we've done was called Candidate Connect. JT, I love this. We have people come in, this was pre-COVID, and you get to come in and hear about us. You meet with the hiring managers, you get to learn about our culture, we roll out our strategic organization, we talk about our equity inclusion lens. So many people were like, "This is unheard of. I never even have interface with the organization until it's after interview, if they don't send me a declination letter."
Right.
Make it a candidate experience. This is a great time. Tell stories, right? Go ahead.
Greatest idea. Why aren't companies creating a candidate connect experience that you must go through before you apply to our job?
Absolutely.
Watch this video, learn these 7 things. We want you to know these 7 things about us before you apply. We want you to understand these things. We want you to hear from these 6 people. Wouldn't it be cool if before you could even apply to a job, there was a far more comprehensive education of the role instead of a lousy job description?
Yeah, I love, and maybe some organizations are doing that, but I'm hoping from the HR influencers and inspiration that's on this call that we create this. Remember what I told you yesterday? One of the biases is, we don't have the support from senior leadership. Okay, but you do have the support as the chief HR person in your organization. So come out different. Come out different. Senior leadership, they don't know. They don't know. They want us. They're looking for us to come out and help them. I love that.
Yeah, all of you need to go that are listening today. You need to go back to your HR folks and create a Connect portal for your talent so that they can go through candidate experience more thoroughly before they apply. They're going to apply better and they're going to do better in the interviews. So, right? So we keep talking about fit. Give people enough information so they can go in and fit and belong, as opposed to walking in and not knowing anything and they're hoping they're saying the right thing in that interview, right? We're just not.
They can make the decision that HRInterrupted is not for them, because I'm going to be transparent about what I'm about, right? That automatically gets rid of the Camp 3. Remember we talked about earlier, we talked about there's Camp 1, Camp 2, and Camp 3 in this equity and belonging work. Camp 1, I'm all in. Black Lives Matter, women matter, all that. Camp 2, kind of no. I think we need to do a little something, not sure. And Camp 3 is leave me alone. Social injustices don't have any place in the workplace. Let me go in my car and go to Starbucks.
Right.
Well, if we do take a good, take strong measures in the beginning, Camp 3 doesn't even show up in our workplace.
That's right. That's right.
The culture would drive them not to apply.
All right. This was so good. Okay, team, but we promised we would give you time to ask questions. So we're going to move into the Q&A section. I love that idea. I think we just came up with a new business model, Stacey. I think we need to create the portals. I love it. Okay, Missy on YouTube is asking us.
Hi, Missy. What's her name? Missy?
Yeah. What do you feel is the best way or ways for an employee to advocate for themselves in representing their talents? And when do you feel the opportune times are to advocate? So this is great. You want to belong. You want to advocate for yourself. Any tips on how to do that effectively?
Great. So her 2 thing was when and how, right? Well, first of all, we're not going to ever shy away from this. Mitzi, there needs to be some credibility that you're bringing. Okay, we can never shy away from this. The squeaky wheels, people say the squeaky wheels make the moist nose and they get all that. We're not talking about that here. Make sure that when you're coming forward, you have some, I hate to say it, a little skin in the game, right? You've paid attention. You know who all the players are. See, advocating for yourself is more than just about you. It's about how you're going to contribute to the whole. And you can't contribute to the whole if you don't know about the whole. So what you need to do is upskill, reskill, pay attention, know what's going on, know who the players are, right? Know if you're advocating to the right person.
Yeah.
See, that's right. It may not be Stacey Lewis. It may be so-and-so, right? And then know what you're advocating about, right? So that's the first thing. And then what you do is it's all about paying attention. JT, I can't as employees, people they don't read the tea leaves. One of my great mentors, she said, Stacey, in order to be an extraordinary leader, you got to pay attention to the tea leaves,
right?
Meaning you got to pay attention to what's going on. Opportunity only comes once. So those things, Mitzi, that you have control over, do them and do them well. Do them and do them well, right? Be honest to your truth and your values. Know the organization, know the players, know what you're advocating for, and how does that affect, remember, both B's matter, the bottom line and the belonging, right? I think that is key. And don't get frustrated if it doesn't happen immediately. See, when you truly believe in something about yourself, there's nothing that nobody else can say to you. So if you go for it the first time and you don't get the response that you don't like and you truly believe it, don't back down. No is yes to another question. My husband says hates when I say it, but that's my motto. You just got to figure out what that question is.
Yep.
Take a step back, assess what happened. Don't make it personal. Don't make it personal. Now, if you find out it's personal, you do something else, but really take a step back, see what you could have done differently, and then try again. Now, if you come to a point where they're just not interested, then you might want to vote with your feet. You might want to do something differently, but don't just retreat because you hear no. This work is too important and you're too important to let that happen.
Well, and it's so fabulous because Lillian on LinkedIn made a comment that really ties into what you're talking about here, is kind of understanding the difference. Lillian says at the same time, when talking about developing staff, that person needs to be competent enough and desire to work harder for personal growth. I agree that encouragement support should be provided, but it does not mean that you have to spoon feed this person, right? There's a difference between that and wanting to grow. And you mentioned that yesterday. I think we need to make sure that people understand that, that, for example, this first round of rejection, don't personally until you know it is personal. Go back to the drawing board, keep at it, right? But we are seeing a little bit of that pushback from people.
Lillian is saying what exactly I told you yesterday. There is a manner in which you proceed, right? Again, I told you my young workforce says, Stacey, I don't like to hear paying dues. I don't want to hear that. Okay, whatever term you want me to use, it's still there. There is a way, there is a manner in which you approach things so you can get things done, right? We are not saying being true to your values, but there is, whether we like it or not, some people will say, unless the building is called Stacey Lewis, then you can proceed however you want to proceed. This is real talk, JT. Yeah. I can proceed how I want to with HRInterrupted because I own HRInterrupted. When I show up on my day job, there is a manner in which I must proceed. And that's to Lillian's point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally agree. Norman on LinkedIn has a question.
Hi, Norman.
Yeah. If a person is not getting opportunities for training and advancement in the organization, what should they do?
Okay, so if a person is not getting opportunities for training and advancement, so I guess here's the question I would ask, how are they going about asking for the training? Is the training applicable? Because see, I'm in HR. One of my people might say, Stacey, can I go to, and I'm not undermining what he said, can I go to dive school training? That doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing, right? So make sure you can tie it back to something that you are doing. And then again, oh man, both B's matter. Both B's matter. Hey, I'm interested in doing this training, right? Because you as a leader said that you're looking for a work team, a workforce that is dynamic, that studies their craft, that's at the top of their game. And so I would like to pursue this training. And then, Norman, I want you to have enough resilience after, because kind of what Lillian said, make sure you're checking off all the boxes. Then ask your leader, hey, listen, Stacey, I'd like to talk to you. There's been a couple of times that I've asked for training and they've been denied. Can I get some clarification? See, Norman, sometimes what happens is we just take no, and then we say they don't want to train us. If it's that important to you, remember what I just said, if it's that important to you, take a step back, look at it, and go again. And then make Stacey say why she's not sending you, right? And you're not coming argumentative or whatever. Can I get some clarification? Because I've asked 3 or 4 times and there hasn't been a response. Maybe is this not the time? Should I be taking, is there another training? This is what you say, Norman. Is there another training you would prefer that I take? You see how words work? I didn't ask. You didn't ask them if you can. Is there another training that you prefer that I take or that I recommend? Because this is what you and I said you want me to do. People, talk to your leaders. Talk to your leaders.
I love that you said that because, we talked about inspiring and influencing diversity in the workplace today. And we spent a lot of time talking to leaders and what leaders can be doing. But I think what we're also pulling up here is the fact that don't sit back and expect the leaders to do all the work, right? We're also going to have to bring this to them. Everything we talked about today, it's a partnership between existing staff, between leaders wanting to come together and doing these things and making them happen. And that leads to our final question before we wrap it up today from Alex.
Hi,
Alex. Much diversity is okay? I think what Alex is asking is, when do you know you got diversity right? Ooh, how do you answer that one? How do we that one?
When do you know you have diversity right? That's an interesting question because I'm not for quotas, right? I'm not for quotas. Alex, I would guess you'd have to define. I mean, I'm not for quotas. I think there is. It's kind of what we're talking about. When your workforce, right? Your workforce can kind of help you with this question. I'm not for quotas, and people will say, well, we have 5 Black people, so we've had diversity. For me, if you're asking me when I know that I have it right, when the 20 people that work for me unequivocally can stand up and say that I know that I belong in this space. When we bring people in our organization, right, from who have varying perspective, et cetera, and they thrive, right? When our leadership, our senior leadership is at the forefront and they know that both B's matter. Yeah. For me, that's when I know we will have arrived. And I know that's a long list, but that's for me, Alex. I don't want you to get caught up on when we know we arrived. Right. I want you to get more focused on the do. I
agree with you. I think the mistake we make is we ask that question and we want so badly to have a checklist, don't we?
Yes.
We just want to get it right.
Yeah, we did it.
Everyone here just wants to get it right. So they're like, can you give me the checklist and then I'll know I'm right. We were raised in that culture of A's, praise, like, how do I know this is right? And I'm totally with you. I think you need to be able to look around the room and see a diverse group of people that are working together and producing great results. And you know that you don't have groupthink and that you don't have, one lane. And that is going to be different for every organization, but I know it and you'll feel it. And then you're never perfect, right? You're still always working at it.
That's it, JT. That's it. It's ever changing. This is going to be ever changing. It's not like a beginning and end. Right. To really work in this space, it has to be part of your culture. Now, people say, well, we know when we're successful on our bottom line because we've achieved X amount of dollars, right? That's what somebody's going to come back and say. We know because this is the goal that we've met and we've reached that. Okay, well, if you have internal goals, I guess that could define it. But this is way bigger than that. It is a way of life. Yeah. And you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. And just because you have some downs does not mean that you are not been successful. It just means you may need to pivot. Yeah. It may need to add a little bit more. You need to re-engineer your focus.
Yeah, we got to stop thinking that like there's a get it right and we're done. You're never done, folks.
Yeah, because I don't want people to beat themselves up on that.
Never going to be done with this. So, Alex, I'm so glad you asked that question.
That was a
awesome.
great question, Alex. Thank you.
It really was. So, team, another reminder, HRInterrupted, Stacey Lewis, she's here every month with us. Next month, we're going to start talking about parents and their influence on all of this and how people bring that to the workplace. It's going to be fascinating. In fact, it's going to end up being a 2-part series for November and December. So please make sure that you keep an eye out and that you subscribe for that. Know that all of the recordings are over on Work It Daily's YouTube channel. So we'd love for you to be over there. That way you won't miss anything. Make sure you're following HR Interrupted on social media. I know we've got Stacey's Instagram up so that you can find her. But this was phenomenal. We love you all so much. Thank you for coming and contributing every month to the conversation. Stacey, I'm going to have you close us out. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I love Alex's question. The other thing, Alex, I want you to know that the people who are historically or systemically underrepresented, when they can be a good gauge for you as well, right? I mean, right? I think that would be a good gauge for you, right? You could say we're doing well, but the people who are impacted the most, when they give you that voice, that's what I was saying. Talk to the workforce. I'm not ever back down that. Talk to your workforce. They have the pulse. They'll let you know, hey, we're on path or we need to pivot. Great question. You guys, I enjoy coming here. Just everyone, continue what you're doing, and engage and inspire the workforce. But most important, take care of yourself.
You guys are making the change, you guys and gals. So thank you. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you all. Awesome. Take care of yourselves. Thank you. Bye-bye.